Jamaica a more climate resilient country. National Outcome 14 of Vision 2030 Jamaica, and I think everyone here knows what Outcome 14 says, but I'll tell you nonetheless, it says we are going after hazard risk reduction and adaptation to climate change. Now that national outcome strategy mandates us to, and I quote, develop measures to adapt to climate change, unquote, and secondly, quote, to contribute to the effort to reduce the global rate of climate change, unquote. The work in this regard is undergirded by partnerships. And so, while I welcome everyone today, I ask you to permit me, on behalf of the management and staff of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, which is the focal point for the pilot program for climate resilience in Jamaica, to extend a very special welcome to some of our partners. Please join me then in acknowledging the presence of Ms. Anaitee Mills, who is the program manager for the Climate Change Division here in Jamaica. Ms. Leanne Roper, Senior Technical Officer for Adaptation in the Climate Change Branch at the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. I haven't seen him yet, but a very important partner in our work is the University of the West Indies. And so we're going to acknowledge Professor Taylor in absentia. He's actually on his way and he has some representatives here as well. So we extend the shout to him. I also want us to extend a very special welcome to our program facilitators today. And we have Mena. I don't want to savage your last name, but you will see from your program it's Mena Valkenberg. And he's ably assisted by Mr. Oral Ashley. Thank you very much. So as we welcome our partners, we also want to tender an apology on behalf of the representative of the World Bank, who is unable to be with us today. And you will learn later on in the program that the Program for Climate Resilience in Jamaica is being facilitated by two international development banks, the IDB and the World Bank. Now, colleagues, the stock-taking exercise and stakeholder consultation we consider important and consistent with the model used in the development and implementation of Jamaica's SPCR to date. And there are 4 projects, national projects, investment projects, that are being implemented at a cost of roughly $35 million US. We had always planned to host a midterm review of the SPCR, particularly from the perspective of the implementation of progress. We are pleased, however, that our workshop today is taking place not only at the midterm of implementation for the 2 largest projects, but importantly, in the context of the emergence of new data and advancing knowledge on climate change and its impact. And also, it's taking place at a time when the funders, the Climate Investment Fund, is celebrating its 10th anniversary and also wants to assess its own impact. Now, last year, at the request of a number of countries, including Jamaica, the Climate Investment Fund agreed to make resources available to the original 18 member countries of the pilot program for climate resilience. And those resources are to do what we're doing here today, to revisit and review the SPCR and also to see what our progress is and where we need to put on speed to advance our projects. We in Jamaica therefore welcome this opportunity to broaden the midterm review effort and particularly to look back at the SPCR in the context of the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change Special Report on Global Warming of 1.5 degrees C. We are therefore grateful to the SIP and to the IDB, the lead MDB for the PPCR in Jamaica, through which the resources were accessed. The results of the consultation, we think, are important for us as a country as we try to develop a more comprehensive agenda for climate action. The results are also important to the SIF and other partners in climate financing as the CIF is seeking to consolidate its own place in the climate finance landscape, and they're anxious to learn from countries like Jamaica what has gone well, what has not gone so well, where there are gaps. Moreover, they want to gauge the impact that the CIF is having and has had in helping countries and communities, and indeed individuals, reduce climate vulnerability and increase adaptation and reduce poverty. So I want to say to you, some of you are program planners, some of you are beneficiaries, some of you are just colleagues, that we're all at the front line of climate impact in our communities, and therefore we are at the best position, to tell us what has worked, what has been working from the gamut of programs being implemented by the government, which ones have not, what can be done to improve impact, and what can be done to improve effectiveness. We are in fact interested in learning from the lessons both in the program design, because we might not have got some things right in the design, and we want to learn from the lessons in implementation. And so we ask that as you go through these 3 days, you keep a few words in mind: lessons, solutions, results, and opportunities. Keep those in mind, make your jottings. If you are shy and you don't want to talk up, you can slip us a note, you can give us a call, because we really want to learn from this experience. So we encourage you to participate fully in today's proceedings and tomorrow and the day after. And on behalf, again, I say, of the PPCR community in Jamaica, I welcome all of you and ask that we make these 3 days very productive. Thank you. So in my chairman's prerogative, I now call on who I consider one of my proteges. She has flown the coop, but it's nonetheless still available to us. And so I'd like to invite Ms. Leon Roper, Senior Technical Officer for Adaptation from the Climate Change Branch, to address us. Please welcome.
Ms. Claire Bernard, Deputy Director General, Sustainable Development and Social Planning at the Planning Institute of Jamaica. Ms. Anaitee Mills, Project Manager, Climate Change Division in the Inter Amercian Development Bank. Mrs. Nadine Brown, Director, Sustainable Development and Regional Planning at the PIOJ. She extends her best wishes to all. In case it wasn't obvious, climate change is a really big deal for the Climate Change Division. Our mission, which we choose to accept daily, is to facilitate the integration of climate change consideration in Jamaica's development planning processes, so that it can foster the resilient society that we want, while also pursuing a low carbon economy. This may be manifest in the plans, policies, and programs that we are developing or implementing, and also to ensure that this is seen on the ground. However, for action to be effective, there must be engagement of all stakeholders, or stakeholders at all levels rather, and it must take into account the best science that is available. It is also essential that there is a monitoring and a reporting system in place. How else will we be able to know what we're doing collectively, if it is working, and how to improve going forward? Jamaica's Strategic Program for Climate Resilience, or the SPCR for short, takes cognizance of all of this. And also linking with what Ms. Bernard said earlier, we recognize that the SPCR is one of Jamaica's most important climate change initiatives in this regard. It targets some of our most vulnerable sectors, and it was designed through a very inclusive process. This has also continued as implementation has unfolded, and it is seeking to ensure that no one is left behind during this implementation. The project has provided or the program rather, has provided data equipment, it has facilitated research and analysis, which has not only been instrumental in showing how climate change is unfolding here in Jamaica, but also it is helping us to see how, it's helping to see how we can adapt and to ensure that the adaptation measures that are being put in place are actually responding to our needs. The SPCR also recognizes the value of a good monitoring and reporting system, and this is why we are here today at the fourth staging of this workshop. One aspect of the workshop that I wish to highlight is the fact that it goes beyond what the SPCR is implementing directly. It looks at the broader picture of what is happening in the climate change landscape and thereby helping to make the connections between the different initiatives that is very important. But it needs each entity and each individual that is here and coming to provide the information that is necessary. I encourage us, therefore, to contribute to the process, as in the end, the benefits will redound to all of us here today. I wish then, in closing, to especially thank the Planning Institute of Jamaica, and particularly the team from the Sustainable Development and Regional Planning Division, and I also see represented here the External Cooperation Management Division, as well as the Inter Amercian Development Bank and the Climate Investment Fund, for the continued support being shown to Jamaica's climate change efforts and also to the staging of this workshop. Thanks also to all of you, all the entities that continue to engage in the process and to ensure that year on year it becomes better and it is successful. The Climate Change Division looks forward to another successful workshop, and we wish everyone the very best, not just for the next 3 days, but for the year ahead. And with that, I say thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roper. It is now my pleasure to invite to the podium Ms. Anaitee, Project Manager from the Climate Change Division of the Inter Amercian Development Bank, the country office in Jamaica. No, Ms. Mills is like a member of staff of the PIOJ, and indeed like a member of staff of the government. She's always with us, always willing to share of her expertise. Please welcome her and share with us.
Good morning, everyone. I was reviewing a little bit because the workshop today is a result of a process that, believe it or not, started about 6 months ago. And usually it starts with the climate investment funds asking, what do you need? That simple question that the climate investment funds asks beneficiary countries when they need maybe a special assistance or additional assistance for gender mainstreaming, for monitoring and evaluation, for stakeholder engagement. And I have to say that under the leadership of PIOJ, that question never remains, we don't need anything. We always need something, and we'll take it, because this is an additional grant funding that is, available for the beneficiary countries. And PIOJ said, yes, we need it. Yes, we will use it. And they always do. They always do use additional funding. And in this particular case, the focus of this additional funding was to do a stakeholder engagement. So what does that mean? And why is it important for the climate investment funds, or why is it important for the IDB, or why do we have to do it at all? And the question and the answer is simple, because if we don't check with the beneficiaries and the implementing partners and the agencies that are involved in the implementation of these projects, and check with them if we're doing things the way we're supposed to be doing them, if we're getting the results we're supposed to be getting, if we are saying what we said we were going to do for Jamaica, and if we don't have answers to those questions, then what are we doing? That is the importance of having this workshop today, and that is the importance of you being sitting here in this room today, and for the rest of the 3 days that we're going to be together. PIOJ, I mean, I like to call Ms. Bernard the godmother of the SPCR, the Strategic Climate, the Strategic Climate Resilience Program, because she's been here basically since the inception of the fund. And just to give you a little bit of background, it was in 2008 when multilateral development banks, including the IDB and the World Bank, a group of donor countries, developed the concept of the climate investment funds. That's almost 11 years ago. 10 years ago. And it was Jamaica 2 years after that jumped into the opportunity of getting their hands into those funds. It was Jamaica always leading the region, because Jamaica is the only country in the region who has access to the climate investment funds. That remains today the largest adaptation climate financing window in the world. And it's Jamaica always on top of things. So it was in 2008 and then 2011 when finally the SPCR got approved and we started. We started with 4 national programs, which Menno and Oral are going to talk about, and most of you have been involved and know plenty about these projects. But I think it's important that we're all sitting together and we're going to be able to talk about all the projects at the same time, so we can find the synergies, talk about the challenges, talk about the lessons learned, the mistakes, because there's plenty, and look forward into, all right, we have 2-3 years left of implementation of some of those projects, and what do we do next? Once the projects are completed, what does Jamaica need? What do we need? How are we going to respond to the Climate Investment Fund saying, all right, we need another 50 million in grant financing? Okay, they're gonna say, you need that, why? What did you achieved? So, just to say a little bit about that, and I'm not going to get too deep into the details about the projects and the SPCR, because that's what the workshop is going to be about. But I would like to thank you again for being here, for allowing me this opportunity to present greetings from the IDB, for being willing to come and participate. I just ask you, like Leanne mentioned and Claire, to be active, to say without fear, to criticize, to point on things and gaps that you believe are still yet to be filled, that we need to take in account in moving forward with the program and in looking in the future into accessing more financing. And that's it on my side. So thank you very much and have a great workshop.
Thank you very much, Anaitee. As I said to her, that was quick, so we really are trying to make up time. So we're going to move now into the presentation to be made by myself, giving you an overview of the SPCR in Jamaica. Before I do that, though, I want to welcome all of those who joined us after we started. I saw Prof. Taylor come in. Prof, we're very happy to see you. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to recognize the representatives of the media, and we look forward to very good coverage, because we want people not just to know about climate change, but we want them to know about the projects that are helping to facilitate, in this case, adaptation to climate change in Jamaica. So I'm supposed to be giving you an overview of the pilot program for climate resilience, which is the group of projects being financed on the Jamaica Strategic Program for Climate Resilience. So my colleague, Nadine, who is the chief organizer of this workshop, really want to sit at the head table. So can you please help me recognize her? The Climate Investment Fund, like Anaitee mentioned, was established in 2008 with 4 funds: the Clean Technology Fund, the Scaling Up Renewable Energy, the Forest Investment Fund program, and the pilot program for climate resilience. Now, Jamaica is a beneficiary of the pilot program for climate resilience. That's a US $1.2 billion facility, and Anaitee already told you that it's one of the largest financing modalities for adaptation in Jamaica, a little bit over $35 million US. As you heard, we were among the first to jump into this program. We were invited in 2010, and the government of Jamaica, through the Ministry of Finance, said we were willing to do that. It's a combination of loans and grants. The loans are what are called concessional loans, so the interest rates are particularly low. And we were really very happy to take those loans, even at a time when there were some people who were saying you cannot take loans for climate change. We realized that it was better to take a concessional loan than to let the money go by when we had so much work to be done. So as it is now, Jamaica is one of 6 countries in the region that is benefiting from the climate program, the pilot program for climate resilience. Next, please. Now, to give you a very quick background of how the PPCR operating, or to continue the background, Anaitee mentioned that there are 2 multilateral development banks that are involved in Jamaica's program. That is the Inter Amercian Development Bank and the World Bank. In 2011, when we agreed after the formalities of 2010, we got a small grant of roughly $507,000 to do some preparatory work. And we did a lot of work with that money. We stretched it. We used the resources to buy things like automatic weather stations. We did a number of studies and so on, and put ourselves in a position to have the kind of information necessary to have a good program presented. And having done that, our strategic program for climate resilience was endorsed in 2011 by the board or the subcommittee managing those resources. And we did all of that through quite a bit of consultation. Leanne made mention to the fact that the preparation of the SPCR was an inclusive operation. We had, I think, 4 workshops across the country, regional workshops, national workshops, and so on. And we drew on the knowledge, expertise, and expectations of a wide cross-section of stakeholders, and then listed on the screen. So we had persons from institutions at the universities, we had community groups, we had representatives from the private sector, fishermen association, farmers association, the international development partner groups, and so on. Now, importantly, we were not, when the SPCR was being developed, we were not doing it in a vacuum. And so it was important to ensure that there was policy coherence and alignment. And the strategic program for climate resilience is directly aligned to Vision 2030 Jamaica. And in my opening remarks, I cited the particular national outcome that is related to. It's also aligned and was informed by Jamaica's second national communication on climate change to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and it builds on the gaps and the challenges that were identified in that And importantly too, we had recently completed a study with assistance from the IDB on looking at the country's capacity to deal with disasters. And we had developed a draft action plan on integrated disaster risk reduction. And again, we sought to use the SPCR to try to address some of the issues identified in that piece of work. Now, what exactly was the state of play when we were doing the SPCR? We were at a point when we recognized nationally the development impact of climate change, because since 2002, we had been tracking, we in the Planning Institute of Jamaica, leading the process, had been tracking the impact of things like hurricane and droughts on the economy. And we recognized that we were losing in the order of 1 to 2% of GDP per annum because of the impact of disaster. So we had that kind of national awakening and realized that we had to plan to address climate change. Also, we lacked the appropriate enabling environment for climate change adaptation. And I'm stressing adaptation because at the time, although we have 2 sub-outcomes in the National Development Plan, we felt that because we are such low emitters that we wanted to concentrate most of our efforts on climate change adaptation rather than climate change mitigation. And we found that we did not have either the legislative framework nor the institutional framework to deal with that. We also found that what we call low adaptive capacity existed in key sectors to implement priority strategies for climate change. And so we felt that we had to be doing something to address that. Also, there was a significant data and information deficiency. And one of the reasons for that was that we didn't have in the critical agencies like Met and Water Resources, we didn't have adequate coverage of the instruments that we needed to be able to be collecting the quality and type of data to be able to help the modeling that the climate change, the unit at Mona was doing. And so they had to be using downscale models from the region to inform what we were doing. We also found the recurrence of damage and losses from hydromet events were not only significant at the time, but that they were threatening to derail our long-term plans for what we call sustainable prosperity. And that the country really lacked the economic resilience and the financial capacity to recover from major disasters when they occurred. So we had to do something about that. And so the focus of the SPCR is that we want, in the broadest sense of the word, we wanted to enhance the resilience of the country to the impacts of climate change at all levels. And so we wanted to do that from policy, national policy, local level policy, and also from a sectoral perspective. And on the board, I'm showing you the broad objectives of the SPCR, which we wanted to address the data issue and information issue. We want to address the financing issue to the extent that one project could do that. We wanted to facilitate some sectoral adaptation to demonstrate what could be done when you focus on the sector. We wanted to mainstream climate change, and you've been hearing a lot of that, but this is where it started. And also, most critically, we wanted to improve climate change awareness and behavior and facilitate behavior change. Now, those are from the consultation, those were the sectors or the broad areas that were identified: water resources, human health, agriculture and food security, tourism, terrestrial resources and biodiversity, coastal resources and human settlement, and financial resources. Now, we couldn't concentrate on everything in the SPCR, so we chose 5 priority sectors, and those are water resources, agriculture and food security, tourism, human health, human settlement, and coastal resources. And the others were treated as what we're calling complementary areas. And I won't repeat them because I mentioned them before. The approach taken in the development of the SPCR and in the design of the projects was that we would focus on mainstreaming climate change in government planning and policy. We would seek to strengthen institutional arrangements to facilitate mainstreaming. We would try to build capacity for data management, forecasting and planning, and we would try to facilitate adaptation measures, and of course to do some work with respect to education. Now, all of that is being done through 3 investment projects. Well, that's how they were originally designed: climate data and information, and really they were designed to capture all the critical areas identified: mainstreaming climate resiliency, river basin planning, and sustainable financing mechanism. Now, the 2 IPs 2 and 3, as they are listed on the board, have been combined, and we now know it as the Adaptation Program and Financing Mechanism. We have 2 additional investment projects. One includes the private sector, and that is the financing water adaptation in Jamaica's new urban housing sector. I think Jamaica National has been represented here. And the other one is promoting resilience in community-based fisheries. And those 2 came on later. I won't buzz take you through the development objectives, but I had listed, and we can share the information with you so you get a greater sense of what the development objective of each project is. Now, critically, since the development of the SPCR, Jamaica's climate change portfolio has expanded substantially. And over the last 5 years, the portfolio of climate change, disaster management, and environment-related projects has grown to over 40, and we have under management now over $150 million US. But critically, the PPCR at 35+ million remains the largest portion, the largest envelope for adaptation. And again, we register our gratitude to the funders of this program. Just quickly to say that, so I told you that there are 40-odd programs, not when we started, but the PPCR complements a forerunner project, which was the Climate Change Adaptation and Disaster Risk Reduction Project, which was funded by the European Union, and which also started the process of helping to develop the policy framework for climate change in Jamaica. And there too was the Adaptation Fund Program, but that was a $10 million US program. And again, we were one of the first countries in the world to try to access those resources. I think that part of it would be remiss of me if I didn't recognize some of the transformative impacts of the PPCR. And I think perhaps in the area of data is where the project has had one of its greatest impact. We've improved data availability for planning. With the University of the West Indies, we've done, the PPCR has facilitated more detailed modeling for low scale or higher level resolution. The university has trained staff across the public sector, the NGO and the private sector in interpreting climate data. Critically, we have real-time weather-related data so that we're able to influence early warning systems. We were able to do a knowledge, attitude, and practice survey to help the government recognize exactly how people felt about their responsibilities with respect to climate change and therefore where to address resources. And of course, another important area is in financing, and we talk about the climate change adaptation line of credit, which is available to small and micro enterprises, and the special climate change adaptation fund, which provides grants and so on for adaptation at the community level. The program has facilitated the review of policies and legislation and therefore identify gaps to be fixed. The program is supposed to be setting up sector strategies for 5 critical sectors, and again to give us the launch pad for impactful work. Nonetheless, there remains, from our perspective, some outstanding areas and gaps. In terms of the implementation of the program, we only tackled the priority sectors. We have not done any work directly in the area that I identified as complementary. So we haven't done things like, if you look in the SPCR document, you see that we should be focusing on things like coastal afforestation, wetland ecosystems management, and so on. And also, in a country like this, where it is badly needed, we have not done any work yet on market instruments and risk transfer mechanisms. So those remain areas that we need to pay attention to. We feel that there are some emerging issues that the SPCR in 2.0 or any related policy instrument need to look at. The adaptation contribution to the national determined contribution, the Paris Agreement, I expect that Leah will speak about that. We need to talk about how a program like this can facilitate expanding use of digital technology for messaging at the community level, early warning systems, and so on, and also to facilitate monitoring. We need to look at improving human health, and all over the region, and in Jamaica as well, we're talking about expansion in the outbreak of dengue. We need to look at how we can do things like heat management, reduce the number of persons exposed to respiratory illnesses, to build the country's emergency response capabilities. We're really saddled with flooding and so on, so we need to be looking at stormwater management, upgrading and hardening of the transport infrastructure, and that's the roads and the drains and so on, and other infrastructure, social and economic, green infrastructure and so on. We need to look at how programs like these can look at energy to support adaptation. And for us in the PIOJ, data is our lifeblood, so we need to look at expanding our capacity for increased analytical capabilities. And now we need to talk about climate services, critically the reduction for the people as a whole of reversing the reduction of cultural ecosystem services that have been impacted by climate change. And one of the things for a poor country like ours is how we can transform some of the threats related to climate change, how we can to economic opportunities. Now, as I end, I would want to say that we don't expect that the CIF will be financing all the gaps or all the emerging issues. The important thing is that as we talk among ourselves for the next 3 days, we want these things to jump out at us, because we will have to try to find other ways of having those things financed. So that, in a large nutshell, a coconut shell, is some kind of overview of SPCR in Jamaica. I'd like to invite Liam to add to that. Is it that I'm too close to the microphone? No. So thank you very much. So please welcome Liam.
How do I?
Ready? No, you're suggesting to do a break, right? While we're breaking.
No, they're not ready.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yes, any questions, any curiosities about the SPCR? No? Yes, sir. So the IDB?
Okay.
My question is, discussing climate change, and based from Mother Nature is what it is just not like what you give to it, what it give back to us. Okay, based from land and from sea, the amount of what we said spill or that come from the land and go out in the sea, which both combine to make the sea a worse place than a better place. How do you think we could get rid of that?
Well, I don't know if that's actually a question for the IDB or mostly a question for your government. Can you go to the
Because,
lecture?
you know, if you want to
So he
change
can capture.
a behavior, because a lot of things that you will say it, a lot of things you give to the land and the land gives you back, right? But it means that
Thank
you
you.
have to modify your behavior. We all have to do it. But to modify the behavior, we start at home, in taking responsibility on how we manage our consumptions, our trash, our energy, our water. Everything has an impact on climate change. That's the first step. The second step is also following rules, following laws, developing policy, and that's outside of your control. That's the control of the government, the leadership. The leadership has to develop the right policies. And that's why the PPCR has been such an important program, because it has touched all of those. It has touched policy, it has touched adaptation, and by that I mean behavior, and how farmers manage their plots, how people manage their water resources, what kind of solutions they need. For example, you remember the drought. It was back in what year? 2015 maybe? 2015, 2016. And that was a huge problem in Jamaica for farmers. And as of today, the PPCR is one of the programs that mostly have financed water harvesting, drip irrigation, and water storage, as of today. Because it's an immediate response to a problem. So I think it's a combination of several things, and the PPCR, as you will hear in the next few days, touches on those different things. But the first step is your behavior and how you manage your resources.
So we're asking you, as a conscious Jamaican man, we're asking you, as a conscious person, when you talk with the people in your community, to help them to realize that the way they treat their garbage becomes a problem for the wider community. Like just using the garbage because that's the one you asked her about.
Actually, every local Jamaican.
Thank you. Actually, every local Jamaican is aware about garbage and try to put their garbage at a location. But then, it is the downfall from the government which does not bring around what to collect the garbage. And that's a big problem.
And so we are noting that, I know that we're trying in the PIOJ to work with the Solid Waste Management Agency as well to see what we can do to help with the collection of garbage at the community level. So perhaps we're going to come back to you, but I think the mic is working now, so we want to move on and then we talk a little bit more. Thanks.
Good morning again, everyone.
Good
Let's try this again. Good morning again, everyone. Good morning. Much better. I will be following on from Ms. Bernard's presentation, really just talking about some of those initiatives that have taken place since the SPCR was approved and implementation has been ongoing. And this is really some initiatives that the Climate Change Division has been involved in. So speaking firstly about the context for action, when the SPCR was adopted, or approved rather, endorsed back in 2011, we didn't have a climate change policy at that time. But because of work that would have been done on the different initiatives, including the SPCR, we were able to have a promulgated policy in 2015. And it supports Vision 2030 Jamaica and is really a mechanism for us to see how we can ensure that the development of our policies, plans, programs, strategies, as well as the implementation of them actually address climate change and its impact. Currently, we are in the process of seeing how we can make revisions to the policy framework. It may seem as though it's a short time given that it was promulgated in 2015, but we have since then ratified the Paris Agreement, which is under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And that is really that international tool where countries negotiate to see how best we can collectively address climate change, both for adaptation as well as for mitigation. And so we want to ensure that as much as possible, the policy framework that we're implementing will take into account some of the provisions and the requirements of the Paris Agreement, having ratified it in 2017. So going then to some of the projects and programs that are currently ongoing, I want to start first by talking about the Green Climate Fund, which is really one of the main financial mechanisms under the framework that I spoke about earlier at the international level. The Climate Change Division is the national designating authority in Jamaica for the Green Climate Fund. What that means is we interface directly with the Green Climate Fund, and if there are any initiatives in Jamaica that wish to access resources from the GCF, then they will have to get the endorsement from the Climate Change Division. As the NDA, the Climate Change Division can also access grants to build the capacity of the country and also to support the region in being able to access these other resources of the Green Climate Fund. And so we have been then accessing some of these readiness resources to see how we can actually move forward with supporting climate action at the national and also the regional level. So I start by speaking about the project to strengthen the NDA, the National Designated Authority. And the grant that has been received under this particular initiative is currently ongoing to develop a country program, which is really a document that will outline what we believe are some of our priorities that we can go to the Green Climate Fund for resources for. We also want to ensure that we have a system in place for providing the no objection that is needed when grant resources are, or perhaps even loans are being requested of the Green Climate Fund, and also how we go about selecting direct access entities and delivery partners. And we also want to see how under this project we can have 2 project concepts to take to the Green Climate Fund for funding. This particular initiative is $300,000, and as I mentioned, it is ongoing. There will be stakeholder consultation, so it's not the CCD that is going ahead and identifying what we think needs to be implemented, but it's a process of getting from the relevant stakeholders what their thoughts are, and also ensuring that it is aligned with our priorities as outlined in the National Development Plan, as well as other policies. Another project is targeting specifically the private sector, and among other things, it will see how it can determine what the barriers are for private sector engagement, and also to see what strategy can be used to overcome some of those barriers. It will also seek to conduct training in project development so that the private sector can develop projects that will be funded by the GCF. And it will be targeting specifically the micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, or MSMEs, across the region. Jamaica is the main country of focus, but we also are having a regional scope, and so there will be consultations not just nationally, but also with selected country partners within the Caribbean. This particular resource is about $582 US, and it is also currently being implemented. There's also another project which is looking at what we call Red Plus Readiness, which is really targeting the forestry sector. We're looking to see how we can have greater stakeholder engagement, as well as to develop a Red Plus communication strategy, and also a national Red Plus strategy, and to also develop the implementation framework for this strategy. We also want to see how we can have a draft project concept developed, which will also be put forward to the GCF for funding. The Forestry Department is really the executing entity for this project, and the Climate Change Division continues to lend its support. And that is in the amount of $613,000 US. To come, we are looking at developing projects that are going to enable the civil society organizations to be able to engage with the GCF. This will not just be a Jamaica project, but it will be one that will be beneficial throughout the region, and will have other countries coming on board as well. We also want to see how we can integrate gender in how we go about implementing climate change action, and also looking at adaptation planning. So these are in the pipeline, and as the process unfolds, you will be hearing more about that. Some of the other initiatives that are currently ongoing, one is relating to building resilience within the urban systems, and this is through ecosystems-based adaptation. Jamaica is one of 3 countries that is benefiting from this particular initiative, and the target area is really in Western Kingston. Some of the communities, therefore, that will benefit include Tivoli Gardens, Denham Town, Raytown, Kingston Gardens, and the list is projected here for your benefit. The project is looking at how these natural ecosystems can help to mitigate flood and drought, but also to build the livelihood of persons within the community. So it's targeting communities as well as schools within these communities, and will implement activities such as constructing drains, detention ponds from natural material, also using trees and mangroves, whether through replanting or ensuring that they are resistant to drought, looking at how you can also construct permeable pavements and walkways, and also with respect to the livelihood activities, constructing greenhouses, planting trees that can provide an income, and also establishing apiaries. The project management unit is within the Climate Change Division, and this is currently an initiative that is ongoing.